Hi everyone and welcome. This is Heather here from Felt Mercantile and we are here for day 8 of our DIY Advent Calendar series. Today we will be making a turkey leg, which is the first video in a smaller series within the larger series about a traditional Christmas dinner. So before we get started, please like this video if you are enjoying the series. Please comment if you have any suggestions for future videos, and don't forget to subscribe and definitely hit that alert button so you don't miss out on any of our future videos in December and onwards. So let's get started. Today for materials you'll be needing, so I have 4 pieces cut out of this brown heathered felt, and they kind of look like fish shapes. So you can attempt to try and cut these out yourself, or I will have kits available on my website very shortly, so you'll be able to buy all the materials and then you don't have to worry about collecting it all. So we'll have 4 pieces of these brown heathered cut felt, and then we have 2 little pieces out of the cream felt that look like tiny end bone pieces. And then we will be needing some brown thread, some white thread, some polyfill, and handy pokey stick, of course, always comes in handy for these projects, and then definitely our needle. Alrighty, let's get started. So we're just going to start by taking 2 of our cut brown pieces, placing them lined up together, and take some of our brown thread with our needle. We're just going to actually start from the outside because we're going to be flipping this inside out. So I like to start about 1 inch in, just because you'll see at the end, but we're just going to go along and whip stitch the whole outside of this piece all the way up to the very top. And if you haven't seen any of the other videos, I suggest you go back to video 1 if you need a little refresher on the whip stitch, but it's really just coming in from the bottom out through the top, and continue to do that through the bottom, in through the top, all the way to the very tippy top of this this corner piece here. And rather than have you watch me, we'll just come back at the end. All right, see you in a sec. Okay, so I finished sewing this whole piece here. I just whip stitched all along the edge, leaving that little open space at the bottom there. So next, we're going to take another piece, and you're going to line it up with the inside of one of the other sides. I always like to be sewing, because I'm right-handed, I like to keep it on the right-hand side that I am sewing. So if you're left-handed, you could always do it on this side. So this bit doesn't matter, whatever works best for you, but this works best for me, so that's how I will show you how to do it. So you want to make sure that the top is perfectly lined up, and I don't stop with my thread, I just keep going. So what I do with this first piece here is I'll come in and do a whip stitch, but then I'll also do a whip stitch onto this other side, just because I want to make sure it's all completely lined up, and it just adds a nice little closing to the top there. You'll get nice edges in the end. So now that it's lined up, I'll flip my piece over. Just make sure you are putting it on the inside so that we have all of our ridges on the outside for when we flip the piece over. So we're just going to now whip stitch down to the very bottom corner. Actually, this part will help us in the end, but it's not a big deal right now. So very bottom corner, and I'll see you in a sec. Alrighty, I am back. So I've sewed down to the end here. Now remember, you don't want to sew over the top, so we want it to kind of look like this right now, plus you've got that little space in that one. So these ones are sewn right up to the edge, but not over the top, because we will be adding another piece. So we take our very last piece here, I line it up with the one that I just did on the right. And what you can do, or what I do I should say, because we're going to be flipping this piece inside out, I kind of cheat by using not tying off my thread every time. You can tie it off here and then start a new one if you want on the other edge, but what I do, just to kind of cheat a little bit, is just skip over with one stitch here. Try not to go through to the other side. So you can't really see it on, oh, no, that wasn't through. So try not to go through on the other side, but it's just to kind of anchor your stitch in. There we go. So we can't see it on the other side, but it's just to bring your thread over to the far end of the piece. Make sure it's all nice and lined up on the inside there. And then we're just going to sew whip stitch from this bottom corner all the way up to the very, very top. And then when we get there, I will show you the next step. Alrighty, so I've whip stitched along the whole edge here, and now that we're at the top, I just thought I'd show you one more time how I reinforce it. So we want to whip stitch to the very, very end, the like furthest little bit of material that you can sew here. Just make sure it's all nice and lined up. And then to give it extra reinforcement and to make sure all of my pieces are nice and even, since we've got 4 points coming together, I whip stitch to the end, then I will open this piece up. We're looking something like this now. So we're just going to want to close that, the two open edges together, give it a whip stitch on this side. Actually, let's give her two. And then I just keep flipping it to different angles and just making sure all those corners are nice and stitched together. So I actually am going to tie off here because I didn't leave myself enough thread. Classic Heather. So we will just tie this off. And we will do that by, oh my goodness, this is tiny. We'll do that by making a couple loops once I get this untangled. There we go. So we've got a couple loops in there, 3 loops for this type of thread. Pull that through and taut. Alrighty, so I'm just going to get more thread, and then we're going to, I'm going to start here. I'm going to whip stitch down to about here. We don't want to go much further because we want to flip our piece inside out. So you can whip stitch this edge here, stop there, but don't tie it off. Give yourself enough thread so when we flip it out we can just continue sewing. It's another trick I have up my sleeve, so I will show you in a sec after I've sewn this bit here. See you in a sec. Alrighty, we have sewn it all around. It looks kind of like a deflated balloon at the moment, but now that we've sewn to just about this part here, we've still got the room to flip it inside out. So I put my thread off over to the side here. And you can just, without stretching the stitches too much, just take the very top. If you don't have tiny little fingers like I do, you can use your pokey stick. But I just make sure that it's all reversed. Actually, I think I will go ahead and use this little stick right now, just to make sure we've got as much out as possible at the top. All right, so as you can see, all of our corners line up. It's nice and tight at the top there. And we're just going to now, I'm just going to give it a bit of a stuff on the end before we close up that space. So as I'm doing this, you just want to push it as far as you can down on the end and just do a bit at a time. If you do too much at once, then it might end up being a little lopsided or bulky in places that you don't want it to be. So put the stuffing in. And while I'm doing this, guys, if you are liking the series, I would really appreciate it if you would comment below. Let me know what you think, if you have any suggestions. I mean, this is my very first week of doing these videos, so I'm sure everyone can use a little improvement somewhere. So I'd appreciate it if you tell me what you think down below in the comments. And I always like hearing from you guys and creating videos to kind of suit what you are looking for. So I have got all these ideas. I've got a million ideas, you know. I could keep going forever without anyone's input, but I definitely like making things specifically when they're requested, because I know that someone out there really just wanted a tutorial on something specific, and I'm able to provide it, because that's what I basically do. I'm a pattern designer. So anything you need, just let me know, and I would be really grateful. And you might even get a tutorial out of it. Alrighty, so now that we're on the outside, I'm just going to close up this hole a little bit more, down to the end. So whip stitch down to the end, and you can tie off at the very bottom. So now that we're down at the very end, we can just tie that off here and cut our thread. Then we will be starting on the white bit. So let's come back when we're about to start that. Alrighty, so this piece is stuffed up to the, I guess you'd call that the stem right now. But we're just going to do a bit more stuffing in there in a second. But right now we're going to take our two little bone pieces and line those up, and our white thread. And since this one we're just going to be whip stitching along the edge, we're not going to be flipping it. You'll want your knot to be on the inside, so I just start at one of the ends here. Got our little knot, put it on the inside, and then just start whip stitching your way around the edge. So we want to go all the way around here, all the way around the end. And a trick for these little corners, do one little extra stitch just in the center of this little corner piece when you get there, and it'll make it just more prominent. Also with these two little edge pieces here. And then continue all the way up to the end, and I will see you in a sec. Alrighty, so we've sewed all the way around the edges there, made a nice clean line, and we're just going to take tiny little bits of polyfill and stuff this guy just to give it more of a shape here. So we'll want to put this stuffing into one of the sides first, just to give that a shape. And it's not, we're not overly stuffing it, it's just so it's not flat. Give it a little bit of dimension. And then to the other side. And just continue to do that until it is stuffed till the very end. Shouldn't take that long with this piece. Nice and small. Alrighty, so now that we've got this stuffed, you're just going to want to place it in here, kind of pull it out to the length that you like, and then I go through and put polyfill in just around the edges on either side, just so that's centered, that little bone bit there. So now that this is stuffed to the end, you'll want to come in with your brown thread, hide your knot on the inside. That's why we left this little flap here, just to make it a little bit easier to stuff. You're going to want to finish whip stitching, oops, without pulling your knot through. Finish whip stitching the edge here. And I continue to whip stitch, but I whip stitch onto the bone piece. So I'll show you what I mean in a second. Let's finish going to the end and kind of give it a little squish like so. And I just start whip stitching onto the bone. So pick a spot, come underneath, and you've got a lot more material on the top here than on the bone piece, so you're going to want to make your stitches on the bone close together and then a little further apart on the top, and then just go all the way around. Make sure it is nice and attached. And so for this project here, I guess I forgot to mention at the beginning, but for a turkey leg, the length of each individual brown piece that I use is 7 inches. If you can use the same pattern to make a chicken leg, but it looks better if you cut it to a length of 5.5 inches. Just a little tip there. I learned that because when I was creating this pattern, I wanted to make a turkey leg, but I made it way too tiny, and the perfectionist in me reared its ugly head, and I definitely needed to make a larger one. So now my kids have a turkey and a chicken leg to play with. So we're just going to go around and whip stitch this whole end piece just to close it off. Kind of gives it a nice effect here, almost like a wrinkle, like the meat's coming off the bone kind of thing. I like to make these pieces as really realistic looking as I can. Sometimes you see in these tutorials, and there's nothing wrong with it, it's really quick and easy, but like for instance, like on a pepperoni pizza, you'll see a pepperoni is literally just a circle of felt, but I like making mine a little more detailed, so I would probably add like some sort of rind to the outside or make it a double layer, just something to give it a little bit more oomph. So if you enjoy those kinds of tutorials, just taking a little extra second to add some more character to the piece, then I find it gives a nicer finished product, and I don't know, it gives me a little bit more pride when I take the extra time too, so I hope that you guys feel the same way as well. So we are almost done stitching all the way around here. If you have liked this video, you should definitely come back for the mini series within this series. So for tomorrow and a few days following, we will be making a Christmas dinner set that you can use for your kiddos. I mean, if they're anything like my kids, they're not going to eat any real food anyways, so you might as well give them play food. So you can see we're just getting kind of that wrinkled effect on the bottom there. Another tip too, so I've got a surprise video for the end of the week for the, I guess the end of my week is Monday, so it'll be next Monday's video. I think that's day 14. We will be using this pattern and building on it to make a whole turkey. So if you want, you can just stop here with this turkey leg, or you can make 2 of these patterns, because we will be using 2 of this pattern to add to the additional piece that we'll be learning next week. So that's it. Now that we are all done, just give it a nice tie off, 3 loops. And we got ourselves a turkey legs. So if you have liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Make 2 if you want to join in our project on the 14th. And I love making these videos for you guys. Please leave some comments or suggestions, any ideas for future videos in the comment box below. And I already said subscribe to this channel. Don't forget to hit the alert button, because I've got much more videos for you to come. So I hope you can catch them all. All right, thanks guys. Have a wonderful day, and we will see you tomorrow. Bye.